mind over matter, when resilience meets real talk and healing becomes a shared journey. Tonight's guest is Gretchen Schoser, mental health advocate, award winning podcast host of Shit That Goes in Our Head, and founder of Schoser Talent and Wellness Solutions. Known to our listeners as G-Rex, Gretchen's story is a powerful testament to turning breakthrough breakdowns into breakthrough. After a mental health crisis on Christmas Day 2022, she chose to rise, not just for herself, but to help others heal with honesty, humor, and heart. This conversation is about building emotional endurance, leading with compassion, and rewriting the rules on how we show up for ourselves and each other. Welcome to the show, Gretchen. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm honored to be here.
Mhm. So, your journey from crisis to mission is incredible. What was the moment on Christmas Day 2022 like for you? And what sparked the decision to transform it into purpose?
So, there was a lot that happened the last quarter of 2022. And I'm a true empath, a true extrovert, hid my depression well. Not anyone knew how depressed I was. And there, I took on a lot of everybody else's pain, but wasn't taking care of myself. So on Christmas Day 2022, I finally my body just couldn't take it anymore. Couldn't I couldn't find my voice, I couldn't find my footing. And, as I was sitting there looking at the bottle of pills, I was like thinking about what who would miss me, right? Because I am pretty well liked and I have a lot of friends and life of the party. And so I had that, and then there was that glimmer of hope that things might get better. And I ended up calling 988, which is a suicide and crisis hotline here in the United States. The lady that picked up that phone that day was the most compassionate person I've ever spoken to in my life. I'm honestly alive today because of that call, and I'm grateful for that every single day. And so the day after everything happened, I put a post out onto social media because I felt like I needed to let my friends know what was going on because, like I said, nobody knew how depressed I was, not even my wife. And, but at that time we'd been together for 28 years. And so I shared my journey on social media, and I had about 200 people reach back out to me and thank me because now they didn't feel so terrified and alone in their own journey. And, for me, it took a lot for me to even say that because, like I said, I didn't understand what was going on inside of my head. Being 59, you know, 59 and a half at the time, I'd been taught my entire life, you just shove that down until there's no place else for it to go. And so we had telling my story was one of my healers. And then the second part of my healing was laughter. And so my co-host, um, for shit that goes on in our heads, every day before work, we would call each other and just laugh. And we would laugh about things you shouldn't laugh about. But it helped set the intention for the day, right? Because even when something bad happened, we still had like our core, we had already removed some of that cortisol, our endorphins were high, and it just made the days go easier. And so one day during one of those conversations, she called, she's like, "Hey, we should do a podcast." So the podcast was born from a really dark place because I wanted people to be able to tell their stories. And every time we tell our story, we open up somebody else's prison so they don't feel so alone in their own journey. And the podcast helped me, change my purpose. Um, I had retired. I took an early retirement from work, poured all my energy into the podcast, and found that my healing was by helping other people to feel not so alone. And we've had so many people reach out to us and thank us for, giving them a resource that they didn't know was available. And I just, you know, our mission has always been to normalize how we talk about mental health. There's such a stigma around it, and there's so much shame, and we want people to realize that there's no shame in asking for help. Um, and that's kinda how everything started. I've been really fortunate the last 2 years. You know, I have an amazing therapist who helps me get up out of bed every day. And yeah, I still get depressed, but I have better tools now to help me, like, figure out what's going on in my own body. And then, uh, at the beginning of this year, I quit my job. I've been in corporate America for 45 years and decided to open up my own company. And I get to use not only my technical skills, but my mental health advocacy to help companies, you know, with so I do on the technical side, I have 15 years of experience with UKG recruiting and onboarding. I'm a subject matter expert in that field. And then on my wellness side, I work with companies that have are going through change, right? And just making sure that they're incorporating employee mental health into their plans and making sure that employees are well taken care of. Because I will tell you, in the 45 years that I worked, there was only one company that did it right. So I hope that answers your question.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So, did you know right away that sharing your story would become a part of your healing?
I I think it did. You know, for me, I'm pretty much an open book, but like I said, I hid my depression well. Being an extrovert, we are pros at that. Not a badge of honor, and shame on us, because when we do that, we don't allow anybody else in to help us come out of that really dark hole, and you sit in your own suffering. And I wanted to make sure that other people were doing that, because there's nothing worse than sitting in your own suffering and denying the people around you to help prop you up.
That vulnerability, that sharing heals not just us, but others too, is so powerful.
Yeah, it does. Like every time we have a guest on, we will have somebody reach out to us and say, "Wow, I didn't realize that there was this resource out there," or "Wow, I never thought to try that." And you know, we give people hope, right? And like for me, I want my story to be a story of hope, because I I am telling you, I was minutes away from just ending it all. And here I am today at 61, almost 62. I have my own business, and I'm doing the things that make me happy and bring me so much joy.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So, you talk about emotional endurance, navigating depression, anxiety, trauma. What does building that endurance look like in the thick of it?
I think that the first part of that is learning how to set boundaries. For me, that was the first thing my therapist taught me. And as an empath, it's it's saved me, right? Because now I know when to put my shield up, and I know how to take better care of myself. You know, there's that saying, you know, self-love, self-care, and everybody thinks it's a buzzword, but it's not. I mean, you honestly need to take care of yourself. Your mental health is just as important as the mental health of your kids, your spouse, your coworkers, the neighbor. You need to take care of you first, because if you don't take care of you, you can't take care of anybody else. And so for me, it's setting my boundaries. And the second thing is, you know, recognizing when I'm getting depressed again. I got super depressed again in November of 2024, and dug into my tool chest of, you know, all the things that my therapist had taught me. And, you know, I was able to come out of it on the other side. And, but this time when I got depressed, everybody knew how depressed I was. I didn't keep it to myself. And I didn't find any shame in that, right? Like we all get depressed. We all have things going on in our lives that like seem unsurmountable. But you know, there are people out there that can help you, and that helps you build your endurance and helps keep you like motivated to, you know, put one foot in front of another. And You know, stop talking negative. Stop the negative talk, because you are the only one that's saying that to you. That's not everybody else saying it to you. And negative self talk is so harmful.
Absolutely. So, are there daily self check ins or rituals that anchor you when things get rough?
Oh yeah. So I journal 3 times a day. I journal first thing I get up in the morning, in the middle of the day, and then I journal before I go to bed. I do a little bit of meditation, and it's hard because it's hard for me to sit still for 5 minutes inside my own head, but at least I try it. There's another thing I do is every morning, for 20 minutes, I watch a funny video, because laughter is good. Laughter, finding joy is good. And then after that, I voice what I'm grateful for every day. I am so grateful for so many things. And then, like, if things are getting bad, I have a couple of other things that I do. I have a folder on my phone, and it's pictures that make me smile or bring back happy memories. And so I can go back and look at those. Um, during the spring and summer and fall months, I get outside, get a little sunshine. I live in upstate New York, and we're just coming out of winter now, and it's been beautiful the last 2 days, so I make sure to get outside. The sun is, like, super healing, and so is nature. And then another thing I do is, my, wife and I have a code word when I need to get out of the house, and I use the word unicorn. It's not something I use all the time, but if I really just need to get out of my own head and maybe get out of the house, I just say unicorn, she grabs the keys, we go for a drive. Um, do little things that make you feel good. Um, I made a list of things that bring me joy. Um, right now, the world's kind of on fire. And if you can find one thing a day to bring you joy, it just really brightens your spirits. And I think that's really important, that we remember that even though the world is on fire, the sound of a child laughing, or an animal playing, or something fun that happened in your day, it's okay to smile.
That reminder that resilience is built in the small, daily moments feels so accessible.
Yeah, they're easy tips, right? Like, things that anything you can do to get out of your own head is super good. It could be, watching a funny TV show. It could be being super creative. Um, it could be going to coffee with a friend, and just knowing that you're never alone in this world. No matter where you live, there's a crisis hotline for suicide everywhere. There's a website called thehelphub.co. It lists out every single crisis line throughout the world. And just remember that these numbers are free, they're anonymous, and the people are saving lives every single day.
Definitely. So, humor is a big part of your podcast and healing work. How does laughter coexist with grief, trauma, and the heavier sides of mental health?
Well, they say that hindsight is 2020, right? And so I've been writing my book about my own journey, and I can go back and laugh at some of the things that happened. They weren't funny at the time, but they're funny now that I think about them, and, like, how things could have turned out so much more differently. But sometimes we have to laugh about the hard stuff. A lot of times there's just some things we can't really do anything about, and we have to live in that moment. But laughter helps release your cortisol, and it helps increase your endorphins, and can help you sleep better. And eh, yeah, we talk about some really tough topics on our podcast, but we can always get somebody to smile or to laugh a little bit about, kind of what's going on, because everybody's got a funny story, right? And we that adds to the authenticity of our podcast. It adds to the humanization of our podcast because we're all human. Um, we don't all of us don't laugh the same. We don't grieve the same. We don't suffer the same. But laughter is a universal healer, and e- even if you find it to be like a little dark humor or irreverent, I mean that's still okay. If you It helps you get out of your head. That that's that's the big thing for me is it helps you get out of your head.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. And that's such a gift, giving people permission to hold both the heavy and the light.
Yeah, like I said, we're really fortunate on the podcast. We've had amazing, amazing guests. We've had authors, we've had therapists, we've had normal, everyday people, right? That once they get behind a microphone, oftentimes they've never told their story before because it's so much easier to tell your story over a microphone than it is face to face. But the thing that they sometimes forget is that podcasts go everywhere, right? There's not a geographical boundary for it, and for like us, our podcast is listened to in over 60 countries, and we're just so fortunate that we get to do this because we're helping to change the world one conversation at a time.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So, in your business work, you help companies blend emotional intelligence with performance. What's one myth about leadership or wellness in high stress workplaces that you love to bust?
The one thing that people really need to look out for right now is burnout. There's, people are not only getting stressed out by their day to day job, but there's a lot of external factors uh, coming at them also. And so, just making sure that, your employees are, you, they're at the top of your mind when you're thinking about incorporating like any kind of change. So it could be a layoff, it could be an org change, it could be implementing new software, right? So most companies know what their future state looks like, but it's during that transition period that they forget to check in on their employees. And a lot of times you'll see burnout and resentment. And you want to be able to like have like a survey, an anonymous survey that can go out to employees that can, so you can do a temperature check on them, right? Because unhappy employees can really affect your bottom line.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So, how can leaders start making space for mental wellness without sacrificing productivity?
So a couple of things they can do, right? They can offer mental health days for their employees, um, and not get docked for those days. They can have like a sensory room, right, where somebody can go in and work in that sensory room, where they're not being bombarded by questions and things. They can offer up EAP services to their employees. And the one thing about EAP services is if you do call the EAP, it's completely confidential, right? Your employer will never find out that you've contacted the EAP. The other thing they can do is give them like mental health breaks during the day, right? Um, Maybe have a team building exercise. Uh, Also, being able to, I think most companies have an electronic bulletin board. Putting the crisis lines out on those bulletin boards so that employees, know that they have a resource right there at their fingertips. Um, Also for managers, maybe some specialized training on how to identify stress or how to identify burnout, and giving them like specific talk tracks on how to address it with the employee, how to address it in a one-on-one, and then like maybe some tips on like changing their work schedule around a little bit. But a lot of the onus really comes on the managers and the employees themselves, right? But sometimes employees don't understand what's going on in their own head. That's what happened to me. And I think that, managers just taking a beat and really listening to their employees, they'll be able to figure out if they're really stressed out or if they're just super burned out. And I think it's really important today that, managers take that step. And it's not just an HR job, it's an everybody job.
That shift from pressure to presence is a blueprint for healthier workplaces.
It is like, we're not robots, right? Like we all have feelings, we all have emotions, we all have stuff that's going on in our life that can truly affect what how our performance is at work. And if companies aren't willing to, you know, help their employees out with, you know, maybe peeling back some of their workload or giving them some concessions, it's really going to start affecting their bottom line, especially if like more than half the company is unhappy, right? Like be proactive in with the steps that you take and try not to be as reactive.
Absolutely. So, for someone listening who is in the dark right now, feeling like they can't see a way forward, what's your message to them?
My message to you is you are enough, you are wanted, you are needed, you are loved, and contact a crisis line. They're free, they're anonymous, and they can help save your life. And they can help give you the resources that you may not realize that are available to you. And remember to love yourself. Um, I know those are like crazy buzzwords everybody hears, but remember to give yourself the same compassion and grace that you would give somebody else that's going through the same thing.
Absolutely, that's amazing. So, what's one small, doable step they can take today to begin their own breakthrough?
If you're going through something really horrible right now, my first step would be to write it down. Because once you write it down, it gets out of your head and it's placed on a piece of paper and you can put that piece of paper away and never go back and look at it. But at least like those immediate thoughts are no longer sitting around in your head. I, another thing I would do is find somebody you can talk to. It could be a friend, it could be a family member, it could be a stranger, right? Like everybody has 8 minutes. There's a great Simon Sinek video out there called 8 Minutes, and everybody has 8 minutes. And if you're somebody that's listening to a friend that's going through crisis, don't try and offer them any suggestions that you think will help. Just listen because sometimes we just need to vent and, you know, be compassionate, be grateful that your friend came to you. And, you know, one thing to really do is, like, check on your extroverted friends. Like I said, we are masters of hiding our own depression. Ask them really open-ended questions, something that they actually have to answer, not like, "Hey, how's your day going?" Like, ask them a question that they actually have to think about and give you an answer. You could honestly save somebody's life by doing that.
That truth that even the smallest step counts is the lifeline many need right now.
Yeah, there's so much going on in this world. The other thing I would tell your listeners is be kind. You have absolutely 0 idea what somebody's going through. If you see go into a store and somebody has a name tag on, address them by name. You might be the only person that does that during the day. Um, be kind to those around you. There's a lot going on in the world right now, and you'll find that kindness makes your heart feel better.
Absolutely. Gretchen Schoser reminds us that healing isn't linear, it's messy, real, and deeply human. Whether you're leading a team, holding space for yourself, or just trying to make it through the day, know this. Your story matters. Your healing is valid, and your breakthrough is waiting. So keep going because the world needs your voice, your light, and your laughter.
Amen. Like the world needs you. Everyone has someone that loves them. Everyone has someone that needs them. And just remember you are enough. If the world's hard enough as it is, you don't need to keep beating yourself up.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Gretchen.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you so much for having me.